loud. So we don't really have a major meeting tonight since there's only the four of us. Hi, John.
Hello.
So thanks for your email that you sent out showing the link for all those videos. For people that don't know, John has been very helpful and very productive putting the videos onto a YouTube channel so we can access them whenever you feel like it, since none of the information we talk about is classified.
Yeah, it's great to have that playlist. Thanks, John.
Yeah, and
So
I was going to say, Ronnie, if anytime you lose track, you can just go to the club calendar, and there's a link at the top of the club calendar.
for the mesh meeting
Yeah,
videos?
but yeah, both
Okay.
for the club and for the mesh.
Okay. Um, I wonder if Ryan is playing incognito for real or just hasn't turned on his camera yet.
Yeah, I still am getting used to this Zoom thing. I don't know if I'm able to start a camera. Let me try. I'm in a really dark room anyway, so I might just be audio tonight.
Okay. There's not a whole lot of us here tonight. So Tom was saying he finally got the equipment to uh, take a load of the software. So he's still working on that software to go at Providence Mount St. Vincent. I don't think Frank is going to be in tonight. He had a medical procedure today and he's kind of under the weather. Haven't heard from Mark over on the East Coast. He always has some words of wisdom to share, but don't see him tonight. So I guess that leaves it up to, unless Tom, you want to say again what you said before, so it gets on
Sure,
the
I
video.
can get it on the recording. So the radio that we bought for Providence Mount St. Vincent has been a challenge. I didn't realize that it took a two-step process, but it took me a while to get the first step in. And then tonight, before the meeting tonight, I said, I got to get this, got to make an attempt to get this thing working. So I had something to report. Well, powered it up, and it took about 10 minutes of rebooting before I could get into it in its configuration. The first step to allow me to load the actual operating firmware into it. And then once that took, I don't know, 5 minutes or so to load in. Once that was done, it went through another cycle of reboot many times. And just as this meeting was getting started, it finally stabilized and I was able to get the beginning screen where you go in and start configuring things. So it looks like it's got the firmware in it now. So now it's time to go back into it and after the meeting tonight and give it the call sign, give it the location information and all, give it a password, and then it'll reboot again, probably another dozen times. Hopefully not. And then it'll be on the mesh network at that point. Then I can see if I can see it with my other nodes here.
I saw it like a week or two ago on the mesh.
Not this one.
Not your new one, but I saw a node that claimed to be Providence Mount St.
There is a
Vincent.
node up there. It's on near the bottom of the tower because we're standing on the roof and just did it at eye level on the tower. With I think it's a rocket. It's one of the little packages that Ron had.
Yeah.
And so what we did is the club purchased this MikroTik router board base box 2 and a set of filters and a 120-degree sector antenna to put up there to give us better signal. And I just been struggling to A, find time, and B, once I did find time, to get the firmware loader. Frank started it, and he just couldn't get it. He couldn't get it to take any firmware at all. It wouldn't respond to the published IP address and stuff like that. I don't think it's bad. I think it just might be of a generation where all of the published information was for maybe an earlier version of that box. So there may be something in its internals that has a checksum issue, and that's why I just kept rebooting and finally gets to a point where it's happy and starts functioning. Even though you've loaded new firmware in there, you think that would overwrite any that kind of function, but maybe this thing just takes a long time to boot up. I don't know, but anyway, now that we're to that point where I can hopefully get it configured tonight, then the next stage is mechanical. The filtering that has to mount between the radio and the antenna, that all has to get in some kind of a weatherproof enclosure, or it may require some cabling to be made up for the RF parts of it. But once I get the configuration done tonight, then I'll start working towards getting mechanics of it done, and then hopefully before the end of the year we can get it mounted and installed and up and running. And that should help like Ken and Kurt and Eric that are to the north get into it, as well as Frank and myself that are to the southeast of the site, because it's 120 degrees, so it'll get both those guys and us as well. So we'll all have a common site to get into. And
the current one that's there has a neighbor to the west, N7FS Chris.
Oh, really? Chris is on. I didn't know that. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good connection.
I think he's west of California Avenue, so that's awesome if that's the case.
Yeah.
Although, if that's true, he won't get into the new one because it'll be a sector antenna that's sweeping from slightly west of due north to kind of southeasterly.
Yeah, here I can show what the current topology looks like. It's here. Excuse me. All right. So this is the Providence Mount St. Vincent node here. And so it's got this connection to N7FS and this connection to High Point. And then Tom, at least at the time that I crawled it, it said that it was connected to you. And then a couple other folks.
Yeah, the -5 is the one that's out here in my driveway that's got a parabolic dish pointing at Mount St. Vincent between my next door neighbor's house and the house across the alley through a tree. So I'd like to get that raised up a little bit, but right now it's on one of those backyard basketball hoops that you fill with water or sand or whatever. That was at Doug's house. The lower half of one of those with a little 5-foot pipe just to get that, and it's rolled up against the fence. I didn't want to do anything permanent till I knew, but
yeah, I'm having trouble reaching it right now. The problem,
I that one's it's
I mean, I would
smaller
have to,
antennas. It doesn't have a lot of gain, and it's low on the tower, so it's just barely above the roof line there.
Yeah, so I can't reach it.
Yeah, no surprise.
It claims to be a Loco MX something or other, Ubiquity Loco MX.
Yeah, that's a rocket, and I discovered the two rockets that I had here. You don't load them with the Ubiquity rocket firmware from the website. You use the Loco firmware.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I tried the one that we had that we didn't know the password for. We couldn't hack the password. We tried everything we could think of to get the password. Finally, I said, "I'll just load the firmware back into it again." Because the nice thing about those Ubiquities, you can hold that reset button in when you power them up for like a minute and a half. It comes up into the TFTP mode. You can put in whatever file you want. So I reloaded, and it didn't take. It didn't like it. I said, "Why won't it take? It's a rocket. It should take the rocket firmware." Well, then I looked at the other one that I could get into, and it showed that the file was loco, not rocket. I said, well, these are the same generation, so maybe that's it. So I loaded the local firmware into that one we lost the password for. Boom, it started working. So I don't know why. It's just the Ubiquity nickname for their boards and their processors. And they use all kinds of things like Motorola should do that. Their first little 800 meg portable that we used to use was called a Jedi, and all kinds of Star Wars names for their different generations of circuit boards. But anyway, I guess Ubiquity likes to do that too. So anyway, the good news is that this radio looks like it's going to work finally, and just now a matter of doing the final configuration and getting the mechanics of the hardware all put together. It's been,
Thanks, Tom.
well, when did Randy leave? Was it December last year?
Yeah, just before Christmas time.
And he bought this radio before then. So
Yeah.
it's taken a year to get it to this point. So been a challenge.
After last weekend, just before the end of the weekend, I took 2 patch cables up to my ham WAN and mesh. So the N4RDZ-1 supposedly has mesh tied over to it, or has ham WAN tied over.
Good.
So if you see N4RDZ-1 or N4RDZ-2, they should both have ham WAN attached to them.
Good.
If you can try and get.
And I believe the Mount St. Vincent node also has ham WAN tied into it as well. So if you can get any of those 3 sites, you should be able to get internet. Oh, and the tower site at West Seattle, I think, also has connected into the ham WAN. So because we have ham WAN in there.
So, Nick, what's up with you? What have you been up to?
Well, I did that updated crawl. And I think something that we talked about the last meeting was that Mark brought up was channel planning and maybe topology planning in general. And I don't know if that's something that we want to think about like systematically. I mean, I don't know how much of a problem it is. We know from Barry's experience that if you put at least 2 nodes that are right next to each other on the same channel, they blind each other. Yeah, which was interesting to me. That seems significant. So
that's why you put a bread pan behind your TP links.
Wait, let me get my aluminum hat here. Hold on.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know. That seems like. I mean, I guess the other thing that I did, I spent some time looking at topology maps, like topographical maps of West Seattle, and trying to like identify some places that might be good spots to fill in the network, right? Like if you look, so if I share that window again, like we talked a little bit about the Tibbetts Church. Let's see, yeah, right here. So that's right here, and that's at a high point, right? That the water tower is right here, and it's essentially the same elevation as the water tower here. So that could be a really good spot, right, with good visibility, potentially to down here to the south and the east, as well as to the north and the west. So that, if I guess to the extent that we're talking about topology and channel planning, and like where we want to put nodes and what channels we want them running on, I don't know exactly the right way to tackle that question, but given what we learned and given what Mark was telling us last time, that seems like a valuable exercise to help fill out, the mesh. Does that make sense? Do folks have thoughts
Affirmative.
about how to tackle that?
Yes, it does make sense.
Yeah, Mark brought up something that I think that is useful to think about is the hidden node problem, where um, you don't know that someone else is communicating, but they're tying up the common resource so that it's confused or it's tied up, but because people don't know other people are transmitting, and so that node gets tied up. Is that something anyone's encountered or thought about?
I mean, I read the documentation that Arden has about that problem in the context of channel planning, and so it seems like I mean, it seems like a worthwhile exercise to sort of think about what, where do we want to use what channels for what kinds of communication, like building like a backbone network where we're really conscious of that, right? Where we say, oh, this is one of these fixed nodes that we're all working really hard to support, like Providence Mount St. Vincent, and saying we want that to be on channel X talking in this direction. And so we don't really want, so no nodes, north of that could be on that channel, but we wouldn't necessarily want nodes south of that to be on the same channel, because then we would run into exactly that problem.
And I think with with our topography, that seems like a problem that is specific to us because we have so many hills and valleys that there could be a lot of hidden nodes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. With these hilltops, and any node that's on a hilltop, the two nodes on either sides of the hill won't be able to see each other. Right. That's what you're saying.
Well, they don't see each other, but also they don't know that the other one is talking,
Right.
is communicating. So therefore they try to communicate, and then the common node gets tied up, trying to wrestle between the different nodes that don't know each other.
Exactly. Right. That those two nodes that don't see each other are going to both, if they're both talking on the same channel,
Yeah.
they're going to kill communications for the middle node.
Yeah.
The amount of time they transmit is so brief, though, and the density that we have at this point, I don't think we have a big problem with that right now.
Yeah, Mark did address that issue. He said that as long as you're low traffic, it doesn't seem to be a problem. But as the traffic level rises up, then you start encountering that problem.
Right.
Well, and to that point, I mean, does it make sense to think about doing a network traffic exercise where we
Try to saturate.
Well, or at least try, I mean, even just trying to do some fairly basic things like setting up an IP phone at two different nodes and making a call between them just to see, like, is
Frank and
that
I've done it.
Yeah.
When Steve had, before Steve took the node down, but our reliable signal level between us, I mean, we're very close, but there's a lot of dirt between us. We don't have a direct line of sight to each other. So, but we are able to make phone calls to each other. So I mean, that did work. It's just because the path was unreliable, it wasn't a good quality call.
Yeah,
I think we just need a little bit more density. We get some more nodes up. If you bring that map back up, my sister's at 44th and Charlestown, between 44th and 45th on Charlestown, and that looks like there's a spot there that would benefit from a node, because there's like this big gap right where your hand is there.
Yeah.
There's a big gap right there where there's nothing. And if we stuck something there on the street, she's right on the alley between 44th and 45th, so right where your hand's at.
Yeah.
If we stuck a node right there, that might help fill in the north-south that's west of California.
Yeah.
Because it looks like we've got a north-south going on over there on 35th, but nothing west of California.
Yeah.
So I should investigate sticking something up on the roof of her house.
My mom has a house on 51st and Admiral, if that helps. I was thinking of putting something down there.
That might.
Yeah, down here somewhere.
Yeah, we're right.
It's sort of down the hill, isn't it?
Yeah, down the hill, sort of down the hill, above Schmitz Park.
The other trick is there a node that she could reach from there
That's
to,
yeah.
to get into the
I'm,
network?
I'm so new. I haven't even looked at any of this stuff yet. I just finally got around to flashing some Ubiquity stuff I had in the closet for the last 5 years, and so
Repurpose.
yeah,
Dig it out, make it useful.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I got some firmware that wasn't official for it to work, so that was a good start.
Excellent. It's fun to
Well,
play.
we have the one TP link that I gave to Nick, N4RDZ-3, and I have the new one still in the box. So if we can repurpose those or allocate those, they're welcome to be used.
And here's another thing, for people that are wanting to put two TP links up, get the ones that have the 2 ports on them. They probably cost a little more, and you need a larger power supply for them. But if you plug them into each other through the network, they will not transmit at the same time. They won't plug each other's ears, so to speak. Because some of these guys have been putting up the 2 TP links back to back, on the same mast or nearby. And as Alan was doing, putting the bread pan behind to get some more isolation between them. But if you get the ones with 2 ports, they talk to each other through that Ethernet port, so they don't transmit the traffic over the RF to each other. They send it through the Ethernet, and so you can get a north and a south. I could probably get the information and send it out on the group email. But
Barry
Barry
said that he tried that.
They make a 2-port version, and if you get 2 of those and connect them through the Ethernet, and then you have to have a larger power supply to power them both up the same Ethernet cable.
I think Barry was using a standard TP link for that.
Yeah, I think the one he had was only a single port, so you have to buy the one with.
He got them to have a DTD device to device link. He got a device to device link between the 2.
Yeah, but I think if you're going through a switch or something like that, it doesn't do that other level of communication that the TP links can do through that Ethernet port, in the overhead of the packets. I'm not sure exactly how to phrase it. I don't know if they speak to each other on the actual Ethernet layer, or if they're maybe sending some kind of background information, somewhere on one of the other pairs. I don't know, but somehow they talk to each other, so they don't. What one hears, it doesn't have to send it to RF to the other one. They send it through the Ethernet, and so they're not transmitting at the same time or, causing interference to each other.
Cool. Yeah.
Another trick is these MIMO boxes that have 2 antenna ports on them, like the rockets and this router board and whatnot. Buy one of those and just get 2 panel antennas, one pointed north, one pointed south.
Yeah.
It's got the same RF going out at exactly the same time, so they're not going to clobber each other.
Right.
Costs a little more, but works way better.
Cool.
The other thing that came up since we last met was the super node. Has anyone looked into that?
I wasn't on the last meeting, so I didn't hear about that. What's a super node?
Well, I put it out in the email after the meeting.
I probably did, but I haven't had time to read the details.
Okay, so the super node is that upgrade, I think, to the code, and it allows you to filter tunneling. So let's say the OEM or ACS, whoever, apparently they're using a lot of tunnels. And if you connect to them, then all that tunnel traffic will then appear on your display. So the idea is that if you have someplace that you don't want all that tunnel traffic, that node can be a super node, and then it can filter the tunneling. I'm not sure how it benefits the people who are using it for tunneling, but for those who don't need all that tunneling, then it shields them from it. And I think it's just something probably you do turn on in the code, in the firmware.
Yeah, it's probably a setting in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the email if you want me to share it.
Sure.
Minimize, share. It's going to stop your sharing. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I was just trying to find Mark's supernode.
Yeah, this is what John put out after that discussion.
Okay. So there's a link there to go look at it. Oh, no, that's the link for Mark's scroll. Okay, well, I can certainly Google it or send Mark an email.
It's in the group's IO that I posted.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay, I'll find it there.
So I guess if you can search for supernode, it should come up. But the idea seemed very appealing. But I'm sure there are pros and cons. I mean, there are times when I was thinking that if the OEM who owns that node that is being, is it the ACS node or the OEM?
Well, ACS is the amateur branch of OEM, but it's
I know, but who owns the node? Who owns the nodes though that are being used?
ACS.
Okay, so it's an ACS node somewhere in the OEM that is acting like a tunnel feature. That is, I think.
Yeah, it's probably just a router that's not actually an RF device, just a router that's connected into the internet that you can tunnel into and pass traffic to other people that tunnel into it. It's kind of like a server kind of thing.
So when Nick published his crawl, Mark responded that that you could get rid of that by getting rid of that node. But I think that we don't want to get rid of the node. We want to get rid of the tunnel traffic. So Nick, are you in agreement that something at the ACS is creating a lot of traffic on
the EOC, the EOC
OEC?
node?
Yeah. So if they had supernode, I'm sure there might be reasons they wouldn't want to, but if they did, then that supernode would cut down on all that tunnel traffic that are seen in the local mesh here.
Yeah, I think that we talked to Doug Kingston about that, seeing how that's configured.
So, but and I'm wondering.
I think Carl can also set up stuff on that, but
our connection to the greater Arden super mesh, right? All of the Arden nodes everywhere that we are connected to. I think that's actually via N7LNX.
Steve could be. I know Randy had a tunnel set up that was like going across the nation, but I think he handed that off. Maybe Steve set it up, or
Steve
set up some of it, and maybe the ACS folks has another pathway through that.
Yeah, so Steve has a tunnel into Mark's node, and then Mark's node is like connected to everybody.
I haven't thought this through, but let's say you have a super node, and it's cutting out the tunneling. But let's say there are two RF stations that want to use that node. They're not affected, right?
I couldn't answer that personally. I don't know anything about that.
I know conceptually though that the RF station node should be able to continue to communicate, even though they're sharing a node that's not sharing the tunneling.
Right, and it could just
if you need to tunnel. Yeah, if you need to tunnel somewhere, but you can't use a supernode to do it. That is, you have to find another node there has to be another node out there that will take your tunnel.
Well, it's possible you can still pass through there. It just doesn't show up on your screen. I don't know.
I think it's mostly just a display thing. I think
it's just a filter.
If you go to the like mesh status page,
and
it's just like listing dozens and dozens and dozens of nodes, most of which you don't know or care about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what the supernode does, is it just will hide those other connections.
So it doesn't actually affect the load on the node itself. I mean, it doesn't interfere with any other traffic. It's just a display.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it will change if you go to like mesh status. Like, and right now, we've got like hundreds of nodes in here, and some of them are like in LA, and they're not part of the Northwest Mesh,
And so one thing about the the tunnel traffic. It doesn't affect your RF, and that's where you have the issue with loading is on the RF.
Okay.
Because you have a limited bandwidth on the RF, but on the internet, you got a lot more bandwidth. So
it's more of an aesthetic effect.
well, yeah, and it's more of, if you're passing all that tunnel traffic from one RF node to another RF node, that path can get choked with all that traffic.
Okay. Oh,
but
well,
if
then
if they're all going through a network connection, in the background through Ethernet or ham WAN, the actual internet, then there's a lot more bandwidth there than your actual RF node.
But what I would be concerned about is the RF nodes passing through all this
right.
tunnel information. That would be extra traffic on the RF. So
exactly.
So you can see the tunnel on the other RF, then it's going to take up part of the bandwidth of the RF signal.
Yeah, I mean, because that network, the whole mesh like topology does get sent between all nodes, right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that we have these hundreds of nodes, some of them that we don't really care about, that is all being advertised across our entire mesh. And many of those links are RF, right?
So that's a burden on the mesh.
It's a burden on the RF stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's what we care most about is the RF.
Oh yeah, at this point. First off, because we don't have enough nodes to get good quality RF just here locally, and that's why people are depending on the tunnels, because that's the only way some people can get to anybody is through a tunnel. Once we have more RF pathways, we can rely less and less on tunnels.
But I think we can still have local tunneling. I mean, if the supernode isn't responsible for the local tunneling, then they can continue as it is.
Yeah, if you've got somebody local here that sets up a tunnel server and only allows local people to connect to that, and you're not tunneling off to other states, that would certainly be a viable and probably more useful than seeing traffic on the East Coast or California, unless there's some need for it, like you need to contact outer region during some disaster. But I think that's down the road. We need to get an infrastructure here that's reliable and stable for our use first, and then we can.
I think a lot of our current infrastructure does not have backup power, so it's probably going to go totally dark in West Seattle. So the place like Providence Mount St. Vincent, the Myrtle Reservoir Park site, and the Admiral Brookdale, they do have backup power, so those nodes will probably stay active. But every single one of the rest of them, which, by the way, I want to re-mention that the senior center node is surrounded by buildings, so it might as well be taken down and
find another home for it.
Ron, what's the status of the staff there in terms of their use of the equipment that's been installed? Are they totally out of the loop now?
It's not connected to anything. It can't see any other node.
No, I'm talking about the HF or the other ham radio stuff. There was a lot of equipment.
You're talking about Salvation Army.
Oh, I'm sorry. And what were you referring to?
Senior Center.
Senior Center. Okay, I got those two confused. Okay. Well, back to the Salvation Army. Or do they have now people who are ham operators and so forth?
I don't believe so, and they don't know what they don't know. We put in an HF, VHF, and UHF on a rolly cart with a computer, and it was FT991 Alpha donated by Doug North, and so they have a perfectly capable HF station, but we're not sure if we have to pay to use it, kind of thing, because they went to that charge basis. So
charge for meeting room availability. Yeah.
So we don't know if now they want to charge us for storing the equipment in there. I spent hours installing the antennas on the roof. With non-penetrating mounts, so it was secure, but did not affect their roof membrane. So If they don't want to play, I believe we should pull it back down and repurpose the equipment.
So, okay, so who owns the equipment? The radio
Club
equipment?
owns club
Club.
club owns it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was for their
Yeah.
benefit.
Well, yeah.
They
I mean, it
own
was
they own
benefited them and the community in general.
they own a CB radio. They own a VHF and UHF dual band. They own an HF with VHF and UHF. They have a HF vertical CHA 250B antenna up on the roof. They have a dual band antenna up on the roof. They have a CB radio up on the roof. They have a mesh antenna, sector antenna facing north up on the roof. Everything's with a non-penetrating mount. So all it takes is a work party. It can all come down.
And so is anything left behind? Is anything that belongs to the Salvation Army?
Nope,
Is that-
nothing in that radio closet. They bought, I will say they did buy the RF cable. So I'll be glad to leave the RF cable with them.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like it's a kind of a dead end there.
Well, the current staff,
Yeah.
you know, they rotate, you know, every few years.
Every 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I
So-
see what you're doing. Yeah, that makes
In
sense.
fact, I just heard from Hector, and he's in Guam, and he misses ham radio folks. He doesn't have that support that he had in West Seattle.
Uh-huh. That's too bad. I know he was really enthusiastic.
I told him I'd come if he'd pay my ticket.
I wanted, I didn't want to lose Nick's comment about topology. Nick, do you have some ideas about how to do a more masterful planning for what we're doing, or we keep?
I've read the documentation that Arden has about their suggestions in terms of planning, and they've got, you know, they've got like, oh, you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this, and it's like, you know, think about it like a hub and spoke model where you've got multiple hubs. The hubs each talk to each other on one channel, and then within a hub you use a different channel. Mm-hmm. And then that would imply that like at somewhere like at Brookdale, we would have a node that would, we would either need two nodes, like we would need two nodes that are connected with a device to device link. And then one is like a 5 gigahertz and the other is a 2.4. And then the 5 gigahertz is used not to talk locally. It's used to talk to another sort of central node in a different hub. You know, that we would have like an admiral zone where we say like, oh, we're going to use channel, you know, 2.4 gigahertz channel -1. And then that little local admiral zone is connected via a single link that would be on 5 gigahertz, for instance. I mean, something, they just have a few different options. But I don't have any experience with that. And I don't have any data. Like, I think Tom was bringing up a good point, which is this really a problem for us? And I think it would be useful to do some exercises where we not just like, oh, hey, can we make one voice call, but rather like, let's measure some, like how much traffic is going over the network and get some data.
The thing that I like about the idea of planning is that it's much easier to do something that's planned for than to go back and re-engineer the whole thing again. That would seem to me it would be a horrendous job. Now, let's say we find out that a bunch of people have to change frequencies. You know, that's going to be a burden. You know, for people. The more people who get into the system, the more burden it will be on them to reverse or change their settings to a new frequency or whatever. I don't know. It just seems to me a lot of work that could be prevented if
changing the frequency is real easy. You just go into your setup and go over there and change the channel from -2 to -1 or 0 or +1, +2, whatever. It's a real quick setting and then just reboot.
Okay, so maybe I'm misguided to think that there are problems that would be difficult to re-engineer. So, Tom, your impression is that there's no big deal with changing the topology. That is, if we decide to reorganize the topology, that's not going to
Yeah,
be a big problem.
it's not a big deal.
Okay.
I think
It just
right
sounds
now
like a big deal to me.
right now we're still trying to go over the hurdle of getting enough people connected so we actually have a network.
Yeah.
I mean, we've
Okay.
got little pockets here and there. We got 3 or 4 people connected here, 2 or 3 there. We don't have everybody in West Seattle actually connected yet.
What about the idea, though, of planning some high profile nodes to be 5 gigahertz if they're going to be kind of like a
Well,
backbone?
here's the thing. We've already got at West Seattle and at Providence, we've got HamWAN. We can use HamWAN as the backbone to connect those 2 nodes to each other through a tunnel.
Okay.
Just a point-to-point tunnel. It's not going through everybody else's stuff. So those 2 nodes could connect to each other without going to any other equipment. The hardware's already there on site. We'll probably have to put in a little router or something, but the RF stuff is there.
So how many nodes now are operating at 5 gigahertz?
None.
We're
all on 2 gig. The 5 gig would be a backbone.
HamWAN linked.
West Seattle, if it's not linked, it can be. I'm not sure that Randy actually did the actual physical routing between them, but it can be. Providence Mount St. Vincent definitely is. Beacon is. Of course, that's not in West Seattle, but that's a node that some of our West Seattle folks can see. I'm sure stuff farther north might be. A couple of the like Carl might have a link between HamWAN and his node. Probably the North Seattle College is. I don't.
Are you taking notes, Nick? Hope Nick is taking notes.
It'll be on the video.
Yeah. Tom, you said West Seattle
there's...
there for just a minute. What did you mean when you said West Seattle?
Oh, I said that Beacon is HamWAN connected. It's not in West Seattle, but a lot of people in West Seattle can see Beacon. So,
right.
Like Kurt and Ken and probably Eric. I don't know that there's a node at South Seattle College. I think there was one designated for it. And it might be the one that's over here that we didn't have the password for. I don't think it ever got installed up there. So, but I think there is HamWAN coming into South Seattle College. I just don't think there's I think they had it set up for a Wi-Fi for field day, but I don't think there was a mesh node there.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen South Seattle College on the mesh.
And Ron now has HamWAN connected to mesh at his place. So there's another West Seattle.
Early on, what South Seattle College was supposed to have a mesh, but Frank decided that it wouldn't be something that he'd be able to connect to. So who would connect to it? Probably nobody. So,
but it still can be a relay point between like Beacon and Mount St. Vincent and the West Seattle Reservoir. The more nodes you have, the more paths you have for people to get connected to.
Yeah.
Like if I can't see that one, maybe I can see that one.
Maybe we can get Frank to go ahead and get access and put that up.
Yeah, it's here. I have it at my house right now. So
is it programmed?
That's the one we didn't have the password for.
Oh.
And so now I can get into it. So
okay,
it's super easy. I think I changed the call sign from ACS to W7AW, loaner or whatever. I don't know, but it's easy to reconfigure.
Yeah, W7AW SSC.
Yeah, whatever we designate it, we can certainly do that. I don't have a power injector for it, and I think the bracket doesn't have the U-bolts to put it onto a pipe, but U-bolts should be easy enough to find either at the hardware store or on the internet.
They're an odd size.
Trust
me. Trust me when Nick tells you our story of the U-bolts on the
Tacoma screw.
Antenna.
Tacoma screw. Just go down there with a U-bolt. Say, I need 2 of these, and I have one. I've got 2 of those here. One of them has U-bolts. One of them doesn't. I can just take a U-bolt and go say, I need 2 of these. They'll find them. Well, the thread doesn't have to match as long as they're the right lengths and distance between them.
Add 2 more to whatever you order.
Okay.
we need to fix the Brookdale Admiral mounting.
Okay.
It's currently assisted. I'll put it that way.
I like zip ties and hose clamps and whatever.
Well, it has two wrenches taped together to take up the extra space.
Oh, okay.
That kind of assisted.
Yeah, oversized nuts make great spacers too.
Yeah, the U-bolt that fit didn't have long enough threads.
Uh-huh. Gotcha. It wasn't threaded far enough down towards the U part of it. So, yep,
Yeah.
I use lug nuts. Lug nuts work great for that. Of course, most lug nuts now are the chrome ones, with the fancy. You don't get the good old standard 1965 Chevy lug nuts.
So we're coming up on an hour. Let's give Ryan a chance to chime in. Ryan,
Yeah.
I looked at your website. It looks like you do a little bit of QRP.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
I'm
and
kind of
then,
limited to but I just, a little limited to QRP on account of when I got into HF, I could only afford a Zygu G90. And so that kind of limited me to 20 watts, but I take
How
it
do you like
portable.
that?
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would make the same choice again. Even though everybody was pushing me, oh, you're gonna hate that. You're never gonna make any contacts. Get a used radio with 100 watts. And
I was seriously considering one until I won a KX2 at CPAC this last
oh
summer.
yeah, oh nice.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was down at CPAC. That was fun. But yeah, so taking it portable, doing a lot of digital. 20 watts is plenty. But now with the PSRG having the remote rig, I signed up for that and have been doing some stuff on their remote rig up in the Kitsap Peninsula. And I don't know if you guys have been on that, but it's a 7300 with a off-center fed dipole, and it gets me out everywhere. So
Nice.
that's pretty cool. And there's my 100 watts. But
and you're getting into mesh now.
yeah, I'm starting to get into Chris. I am one of the net control hosts for the Future Sound Digital Hams Net, and Christian kind of got my juices flowing about mesh, and it's something I was looking into when I even first got my technician license. It was one of my kind of goals to figure out. And it seemed really cool, and all that time for the last 2.5 years, I've had these. Well, longer than that, but since I knew about mesh, these Ubiquiti Light Beam 5AC. Just wondering if I could do anything with them, and from what I found out, uh, everything was pointing to Microtik and other vendors. Maybe I was just looking at Hamwan at the time, but anyway, Christian sent
I
me a
love you.
link to.
I love Ubiquiti.
Yeah, okay. So my story with why I have these in the first place is I was living in San Francisco, and this between 2011, moved back here about 2017. Anyway, they were just getting started with gigabit uh, down there, and my buddy up the hill from me, I live down at Ocean Beach, just down at sea level basically, and my buddy was about it's like 10 blocks up the hill from me, and perfect line of sight from his window to my roof, and he could get gigabit, but they didn't have a node down in my neighborhood. They couldn't run a line, a fiber line to my house. So I signed up for fiber at his house and shot the signal down the hill. It worked perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was getting like 400 megabits. So
Gotta love those hams.
yeah, pretty much maxing out. But no, I was gonna say, I mean, I don't think I live up in North Seattle right now, and there's nothing other than the Maple Leaf Reservoir Park from me, and I don't think I have any chance of getting line of sight. I don't even know if it's 5 gig up there or not. But
No, well. There's a ham wham shot into there,
yeah,
but there's not access points. But we've been in discussion with with the Ham WAN group to put access points there, so it will become a Ham WAN
Oh, okay.
site. So stay
And
tuned.
I've got one of those GLI net little I think 300 or so or whatever. And Christian had a PowerPoint for that one, like setup guide for that one he sent me, and it was the $30 deal. Yep, that guy. Yep. So I got one of those, and I got a panel antenna from my alpha from one of my alpha adapters on that just playing around, but obviously not hitting anything from here. But as far as these,
so at Maple Leaf right now, there's a TP link, but it's on the southeast corner of the radio site building there, and kind of just squirts to the east and south.
Yeah, I was gonna go up there one of these days and just see what I could hit from
we stuck it up there temporarily because we were doing an exercise at the park up there, and Carl would say, "Hey, can we get something?" I said, "Yeah, okay." I took a TP link up there, we set it up, and somehow it's become a permanent resident. But we have plans on sticking one up on an antenna higher up, because that's like at head height level, so it doesn't really have any coverage. But we're looking at sticking one, about 15, 20 feet off the ground. So stay tuned.
So you were talking about, organizing the topology a little bit, and if you using five gigahertz, beams. If you guys have any sites in mind that would get benefit from these, I'm happy to donate them to the cause. They're light beam 5 ACs. So just add that to the back of your mind.
So Christian, do you know Carl Leon, N7 KUW?
No.
Okay, he's pretty active in the mesh up in that part of town.
As is Christian.
Yeah, and so is Christian. Christian was the one that organized the first Meshapalooza up there at the college. Then he got sick and couldn't attend, so I didn't get a chance to meet him in person. But I was up there for the first one. I didn't get to make it to the follow up one that they had, but I'm sure they're going to plan on more. So yeah, keep active, keep in touch. And the group down here is great. There's a lot of activity. Yeah, I mean, they're getting more interest up north, and I think you get a few more nodes up there, you'll probably find somebody you can connect with.
Yeah, like I said, my mom lives in West Seattle still. That's where I grew up, and
awesome.
So I could probably, she is down the hill a little bit, but that's another option. Just I go out there quite often, so that's my second home. But I probably put something at her house.
Yep.
I put Carl's email into the chat.
Okay.
Stuff doesn't. Once I log out, the chat goes away on this iPad, so that's why.
And I also noticed that you put in WM7X .com.
.net.
Yeah, .net, whatever. Anyway, one of the guys that just took a test yesterday, Bork, he's from Redmond. I tested him on both his technician and general. He shows up on that list.
You passed?
Yeah, passed both.
Awesome.
From a get-go.
Love to hear that.
Ron, you're not listed on the volunteers.
Where's the volunteers?
There's the volunteer page. And I went down, it's a really long list, and I didn't see you. A test team, excuse me. Under test team, there's a list of VEs I gave. And I didn't see you unless I missed you.
Oh yeah, I'm not in one of the featured things. But I've seen Gordon West comes in once in a while. All these guys that are on there have their own testing.
I see. Okay, got it.
So
there are a lot of people who are not on the list.
Yeah, there's Mackenzie. She doesn't look like that anymore.
Who does?
There's a guy from Maine is in there. Robert, he's real fun. And a guy from Texas. There's Will. Will is, whoops, hold on.
I didn't see Will.
Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Meeting. Share screen. And that one. And share.
Will Crowd. Okay, different Will.
Yeah, he's Will is one of the teams. That's the Tennessee Valley group.
What's that uniform he's got?
Fire. He's a fire chief. Debbie doesn't have her picture because she doesn't like to have her picture taken, but she runs a testing session 4 times a day.
Wow, she's busy.
Yeah. I've only been doing this since January.
Are they still able to do the testing online? Is that kind of permanent now?
Oh yeah, this is
Right on.
online testing. So
Good
let me
research.
change one of my backgrounds. That's when I'm testing with the WM7X group. And then here's Tennessee testing and the ARRL version of Tennessee testing. And then here's Debbie's Idaho testing team. And then, of course, VE's After Dark is when we break out the adult beverages. We're not allowed to drink while we're testing. We can have water, Coke, coffee, but no adult beverages.
You know, a trick I heard was when you're on a Zoom call, you have your teacup in front of you, full of a wine, of course, but you blow across the wine, make it look like you're cooling off the tea before you sip. People think you're drinking tea or coffee.
Too late at night.
I mean, I read that online. It's not that it's something
Yeah.
I do.
Right. Yeah.
Because, you know, this is obviously not a teacup. No, you can't say
Ryan,
it's obviously not a teacup.
Ryan, we're here the second Tuesday of every month. Second Thursday of every month.
Okay.
So please feel free to join, and anybody you know that wants to do mesh is welcome to join too.
Right on.
We also have a groups IO that John helps me manage. I don't own it, so I can't admit people. Nick, did you ever get admitted?
Yes.
Okay. The guy that owns it takes his sweet time. So until you get in, just let us know and we'll forward emails to you.
Yeah.
Is that Mark
I
down
do.
in Vancouver?
Yeah, no, this is a guy somewhere here in the Pacific Northwest.
I thought it was Mark down in Vancouver, Washington that ran that.
That could be. It could be. We took it over from him.
Yeah, well, it was inactive.
Hostile takeover.
Yeah. Anyway, I think he enjoyed having more traffic on the group. It was pretty popular back in the very beginning, and then things just kind of. I was going to also say, Ryan, as a push for some of us here, we have an Elmer's breakfast on the first Saturday of the month here in West Seattle.
Oh yeah,
it's part of the West Seattle Club, but it's an Elmer's thing. So if you have any questions about ham radio of any facet, bring them there. Have breakfast with us. Have a good time. Also, our club meetings are on the third Saturday at the Salvation Army in White Center. So, you know, there's always mesh folks that are happy to help you there too. I'm sorry.
What was the Elmer's breakfast day thing?
It's the first Saturday of the month.
Okay.
And that's at the Great American Diner on California Avenue.
And bar. It's a diner and a bar.
Well,
So
yeah.
Bloody Marys
So
are
you can have a mimosa if you want. Anyway, so the
You can
first
have a
Saturday is
virgin
the
mimosa.
it's the Elmer's breakfast, and then the third Saturday is our regular West Seattle Amateur Radio Club meeting at the Salvation Army.
No bar at the
No,
Salvation
Salvation
Army.
Army.
Yeah, no problem. Well, that sounds
so
really fun.
there's always a group of folks at both of those events that have some knowledge of mesh and all the other facets of ham radio that we're all having a lot of fun with. So
Yeah,
welcome to come down and join us.
yeah, that's
I'm going to
good.
go ahead and stop the recording.
And Ryan, the